Rachel. We're ready to go.
Ready? Okay. Welcome everyone today to our great session. Oh, nope. Am I a slide too far in? Yes, I was. Sorry about that. We have a great session today called Creating Standout CBS Applications Essays. I'm excited to be here. My name is Rachel Beck, and I'm a senior consultant at the admissions consulting firm mbaMission. And just a little bit of background about me before we dive in. This is my 7th season doing admissions consulting. I am a graduate of Columbia School of Journalism as well as Columbia Business School, and I also spent many years as an alumni interviewer for the MBA program, which really gave me a great perspective of sitting on the other side of the table. Prior to coming to mbaMission in 2011, I was a very long-term journalist. I worked for a company called the Associated Press, or AP, which is the world's largest news organization, and covered really a lot of business news, and for much of the last decade was its national business columnist. So I really come to this job with a lot of writing and editing experience. I also have a lot of business school experience, and I loved business school, and my goal is to help my clients really effectively put together their applications. Now, because I went to Columbia, I do a lot of Columbia applications each year, and I'm ready to kind of give you my tips on how to approach this year's application. So let's get started. So this is going to be our table of contents for today, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how we get inside the mind of the Columbia admissions office, and then we're going to do a little analysis on the Columbia essays, which are different this year, and I like them a lot. And then I'm going to give you some tips on creating standout essays for Columbia and beyond, and then some application strategies for Columbia. I'll tell you a little bit more about mbaMission, and then I'll gladly take your questions. So let's get started. So getting inside the mind of the CBS admissions office really means you have to put yourself in their shoes. So first of all, they had over 6,000 applicants for the class that entered in 2016. And they really want a class of about 750 or so people. That includes those who start in the fall and those who start in the winter, because Columbia has a January term. So there's part of the class, about a third of the class kind of starts off season. They'll start in January and they will not have an internship. So just so you understand that. And when you're in the Columbia admissions office, you have to care a lot about these stakeholders. You have to care about the professors. The professors want people who have great academic potential, that really fit with the program. They're excited to be there. They want to participate. The students also care a lot about the academic potential of their classmates, because a lot of Columbia's courses are done with the case method. So they want that dynamic interaction among students and professors. They also care a lot about the professional potential of their classmates, because you don't want a class of people who aren't going anywhere in your career. This is your immediate network. And they also care about the social fit, right? You don't want a class of people who aren't interesting and fun and outgoing. You want people who are going to make the experience terrific. The alumni and the recruiters have very similar wants out of the class. They want people who are going places in their career, right? You want to, if you're an alumni, you want to see that people take off in their career post MBA. And you also want to see people who have this like leadership potential, and they're people who really have promise. And the recruiters care about the same thing. They don't want to go recruit at a school and say, these individuals are terrible, we're not going to hire any of them. That's not interesting to them at all. And then the dean cares about all of these things. So these are just important things to keep in mind, that the admissions office is thinking about. We need to please all these different stakeholders, and how can we do that? Okay, so what does the admissions committee really want? What do they care about? First of all, they want a consistent theme, right? They want you to reflect on your past and be able to tell strong stories. They want simplicity. They ask a question, please answer that question. Don't try and cram another school's question in that answer. I know that sounds crazy, but it happens all of the time. We see this all the time. If they're asking you straightforward, what are your goals? Please tell them your goals. That's really important. Seize the moment, okay? They want to look for people who are making the most of their opportunities. They're not just coming to work and punching the clock. They're coming to work and thinking of ideas to better the companies that they're working for, to get involved in things outside of their direct line of work. So that really matters. You do not need to be an Olympian. You do not need to be Mark Zuckerberg. You don't have to have some crazy story. You need to be somebody who's just interesting and dedicated. I had a client last year. You'll hear in this presentation a lot about previous clients because I like to bring them in. He didn't have a lot of outside activities, but he really was somebody who participated above and beyond within his company. He created a recruiting program. He worked really hard on the summer intern program. He showed that he was very dedicated outside of his direct line of work. Every interview he went on, this was discussed. So just keep that in mind, that they're looking for interesting things about you, and you don't have to do something that there's no requirement to climb Mount Kilimanjaro to get into business school. I can say that with 100% confidence. What don't they want, right? They don't want you to change your past. They don't want you to try and fit into a box. I hear this a lot. We offer free consultations where you can sign up and you get 30 minutes on the phone with any of our consultants, and you can ask any questions you want and we can assess your profile, whatever you'd like. And what we hear a lot is that people want to try to fit into a certain mold. They want to say, well, I work for Teach for America. I'm not a consultant. Should I say that I did this consulting work for a friend so I sound like a consultant? No, you should talk about the accomplishments you've had at Teach for America. That's more important. So keep that in mind. So we hear from people a lot, oh, the AdCom hates bankers, which they don't at all. But like, can you change your past? Of course. The AdCom hates older applicants, which isn't true also. Can you change your age? No. They love science grads. We hear that a lot too. Like, oh, it's becoming more, the science and technologists are moving more into the finance jobs. Are you going to go get a science degree? No. If you don't have great leadership, are you going to suddenly make it up? Of course not. Okay. They're not seeking a type. They're seeking interesting people. They want you to be interesting and committed and somebody who takes initiative and takes risks and makes decisions. That's what they're screening. So it's something really important to keep in mind. Okay, so in terms of like, what is the class profile for Columbia with the class that entered in 2016? So that was in people who were in the January term and also in August. So women they are now more than a third of the class. We see this strong international 42%, which I believe has even gone up. I think we even might have some new statistics about the class that's just entering that just came out. I meant to update this. What we're seeing also is that technology is starting to rise. In the last few years, people coming from a background in technology has started to go up. Financial services and consulting still hold a big grip on the incoming class at Columbia, private equity as well, but we're definitely seeing more and more from the technology, marketing and media, real estate, so keep that in mind. Okay, so now let's look at the essays. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background and to help you see kind of where the Columbia essays, like how they've morphed over the last few years. So Columbia, a number of years back, started this very, very short, what is your immediate post-MBA professional goal? And they actually have examples of it online. In their online, on their website, they say, this is what we want. It's 50 characters, which is just about 6 or 7 words. It's not much at all. And as I'm going to move through these slides a little bit quickly because they're the past, but they've always had a personal statement or a career goals essay. And we have actually a great primer on how to write an effective personal statement essay, free for download on our website. So if you do not have it, definitely go take a look at it. But they always want to know, what are your goals and how can we help you get there? And when we get to this year's questions, it's almost a double whammy in that. Columbia, as you can see here in this second question, cares a lot about how New York fits into its experience, which they don't specifically ask this year, but it's something you should always keep in mind, because Columbia's tagline used to be the New York advantage. And then I think in 2013, it trotted out this at the very center of business tagline. So these are important themes for Columbia, even if they're not asking you to directly talk about how being in New York is going to matter. And for a number of years, Columbia had this question, what will your cluster mates be pleasantly surprised to learn about you? The most important thing to know about the third question for Columbia is always a fit question. They're always trying to get a sense of, who are you as a person? It's not for you to talk about professional experiences only. It's a chance to bring in other aspects of yourself. And that's where Columbia really decides, are you somebody that a classmate would want to sit next to during a lecture, or be part of a club with, or on an alumni panel with? So just keep that in mind. Then we saw last year, they changed a little bit of the questions, but they still were very, very focused on your career goals and being at the very center of business. And now we move to this year's questions, which we will dissect at length, but let me just read them. First one, we have, what is your immediate post-MBA professional goal? 50 characters, quick, 50 characters, 7 words. Then we have, through your resume and recommendations, we have a clear sense of your professional path to date. What are your career goals over the next 3 to 5 years? And what, in your imagination, would be your longer term dream job? This last clause, this longer term dream job, is new for Columbia, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So this is 500 words. The second question is, the full-time MBA experience includes academics, recruiting, and networking. What are your personal priorities, and how do you anticipate allocating your time at Columbia Business School? I actually really like this question because you can hit on a lot of important points about what you want to get involved in at Columbia and how you're going to contribute to Columbia while you're there. The challenge with this essay is the word length, 250 words. Think about it in 3 paragraphs. Boom, boom, boom. We'll touch on that a little bit more. And then the last essay is, again, the fit essay. So you're going to choose one of the following. One could be, please tell us what you feel most passionate about in life. Or if you were given a free day and could spend it anywhere in any way you choose, what would you do? So those are 2, great options, and we'll go over how to approach them. So let's dive in. So what themes do we see over the years? Continued focus on goals, right? I just talked about that. Strong focus on applicants' knowledge of CBS, and they want you to be authentic. They want you to tell personal stories. The best stories for that last essay or essays is being really, really personal, telling stories about yourself. Jump there. So how should you think about the career question? Okay, so you want to set realistic career goals. You do not want to have a pie in the sky career goal for your short-term goal. You want to think about a goal that is very realistic and attainable. This is crucial for 2 reasons. First of all, the admissions committee cares a lot about what your goals are, because they want you to be employed when you graduate from business school. They want to be able to say in June of the year you graduate, 98% of our students have jobs, right? Because if you do not have a job coming out of business school, you're miserable and you actually become a terrible alumni. So their goal is to make sure you're employed, number 1. Number 2, keep your dreams in check. So even though Columbia asked you, what is your long-term dream job? You don't want to have that to be a pie in the sky either. You want it to be a realistic step down the road of where you want to be. If it's too far-fetched, it's going to make the AdCom uncomfortable. Now, long-term goals are very hard to see, right? There's a lot that can change between when you graduate from business school and where you ultimately end up, where this dream goal could be. So understand that. And yes, you can reach a little bit, but also you want it to make sense. I also want to just throw in here some knowledge that I have from being an alumni interviewer. The alumni interviewers are given a set of questions that they have to get information on, and then they can basically ask other things if they want to. But kind of the structure of the first part of the essay, of the interview, is set, and they are asked to have the applicant define their career goals, and then the interviewer has to assess whether or not those goals are reasonable. Is the person going to be able to achieve those goals? So it's not just for the essay's sake, but it's also for the interview's sake that you have to have solid goals, okay? With this essay number one, even though the school says, and I'm going to go back to this, through your resume and recommendations, we have a clear sense of your professional path to date. Even though they say that, how can you write about your goals if you haven't kind of laid out your path to get to this goal, these goals? So I think that it is absolutely fine to kind of give a little bit of background on your accomplishments and your career path up into this point. I really, really do. I think it's also very important to explain how you identified your need for an MBA on a broad level. If you go out to coffee with a friend and your friend asks you, tell me why you want to go to business school, you would never, ever, ever say, well, I want a Columbia MBA because I want to build a business knowledge base that will help me when I decide to shift into real estate, study of real estate, and participate in the Milstein Center, and also grow as a leader and a manager by taking this course at Columbia. Like, you would never say that to a friend. You would say more broadly, like, I'm an undergrad government major, and so I have no training in business. I really need that foundational knowledge to help me understand how the different parts of business work together, which will help me when I eventually transition into my future career. And I also want to build this toolkit that I want to use as a leader and a manager, not just right after school, but for many, many years. That's how you would approach telling a friend. That's what I like in this essay. I like a very, very direct explanation of why MBA. So keep that in mind. You want to then give very specific examples why Columbia, after you kind of make this broad assessment, why Columbia is the right school for you, okay? Focus on the academics and the experiential learning that will help you. You have essay 2 to talk about activities and clubs and other things that you might want to get yourself involved in. I feel in this essay, it's like, this is the learning I need to achieve my goals. So that's kind of my take of essay number 1. Essay number 2 is the personal priorities question. And what I fear, I'm going to go back to the question, what I fear will happen to a lot of applicants is they will write an essay that says, during my time at Columbia Business School, I want to allocate my time to academics, recruiting, and networking. With academics, I want to do this. One paragraph on academics. With recruiting, I want to do this. With networking, I want to do this. And it becomes this dreadfully boring list. We don't want that. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is step back. Before you ever put, I say pen to paper, not like anybody's writing this out, but before you type a word, step back and think to yourself, what broadly do I want to get out of this Columbia MBA? What's really important to me? Maybe you're somebody who's only had work centered in the United States. You have no global perspective. So maybe building your global perspective is something really important to you. Maybe you're somebody who has worked in marketing for a financial firm, but really wants to make the shift to marketing of consumer products. So a personal priority for you would be to really develop skills and your network in marketing for consumer products. So really step back and think to yourself, what is important to me? What do I need to get out of this program? When I walk away, what are the 3 things that really matter to me? And my approach doesn't just look at academics, recruiting, and networking. Those things kind of fall under these broad headers. So you're not just putting all the classes you want to take or the recruiting that you're going to do in individual paragraphs. They kind of get spread out throughout the essay based on the priorities that are important to you. You don't want to, I said here, don't avoid being canned or predictable. Don't have one paragraph about academics, one about recruiting, one about networking. It would be so boring. I've seen those essays already and they're boring. Think about what are your priorities, and then look at your personal and professional history. Look at the kinds of the interests that you've had outside of work. Like maybe part of your reason you want to go to Columbia is you really want to expand your network, but you want to continue to involve yourself in activities that really interest you. So being part of the cycling club and volunteering at the Harlem tutorial program might help you connect with people who share similar passions. That's great. So it's really important for you to think about those broader themes and how the Columbia experience fits underneath it. Now, one thing that's not mentioned anywhere, but I think is important, is weaving in on some level how being in New York is going to help you. Because the New York advantage is really important to Columbia. So you want to hit that in some way. It could just be, because I'm located in New York, I'm going to have the opportunity to do some internships during the semester, or I'm going to get to go, I really want to build my knowledge in fintech, and there's a lot of conferences coming to New York over the next year, and I'm excited to be able to be in New York for my MBA and be able to attend these conferences, whatever it might be. But really think about the New York advantage. Okay, so now you have essay number 3, which is choose path A or B. The first path is, what are you most passionate about in life? Okay. What I find a lot of applicants want to do for this question is they feel like they have to show something that is like, oh my, Rachel, I want to tell them that I feel so strongly about this. And I think that's kind of the wrong way to approach it. I want you to think about, first of all, things that you do in your life, in work and outside of work, that really reflect character traits. Okay, so you want to almost isolate, like, what's a really good character trait that I might have, and how can that might ultimately show what I'm most passionate about, right? So I might be somebody who is really committed to working with, helping teenagers believe in themselves. I'm just making something up off the top of my head. And you have a few different things that you do that kind of surround this idea. So you want to highlight that. You want to build that into an essay. The best essays for this question don't just tell one story. They tell a few different stories around a similar theme. And writing thematic essays can be very, very, very powerful, right? They can let you tell a lot in a short amount of space. Again, this is 250 words, so it's teeny tiny. You don't get a lot of space. It's 3 paragraphs. Again, big stories aren't required. They want to get to know you by learning about interesting aspects of your life. Like if you're most passionate about plunging into different cultures, great. Let's see how you've done that. You might have done it you might have discovered that as a young child through travel. You might then apply it in your career where you do lunch and learns with the population of Chinese interns that are working at your firm. And you might then apply that later on in life to, something else that you've worked on. So that was a very loose example, but really try to connect things in your life. Okay, now we get to the question about spending the free day spent anywhere question. Again, step back and think, what doesn't the AdCom know about you? And don't create a story here that is like aspirational. Like, if I had a free day anywhere, I would want to go to the Maldives and go scuba diving. And that's been my long time dream. They don't want to hear that. You really want to connect to something in your life that would bring you back to a place. It might be a childhood memory of a place that you can kind of relate to it. It might be a strong trait, like something took place at a place that you had visited and you feel really strongly about it. And you want to go back and maybe show how you've grown since the last time you were there. Big stories aren't required again. They want to get to know you. That's most important, really. Very, very important. And always with both of these questions that they have for number 3, look for captivating ways to tell your story. That's what they want to see. They want to be connected to you. They want to feel when they finish the story like, I really understand what Rachel's passionate about, or wow, I want to go on this adventure with Rachel and go back to her college dorm freshman year and get to, re-meet these people that had such a profound influence on her life, or whatever it might be. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now we're going to talk about broadly how you can create standout essays. So number one thing that I want you to think about is how you can show color. What is color? Color is bringing details out for the reader to really grasp onto, right? Color illuminates everything on your page. So when you write in black and white, right? We all write in black and white on a computer, right? Or on a piece of paper, but that's not what this is about. It's like when you write with black and white, you say something like, and she was a Chinese citizen. And the admissions committee is like, oh, okay. She grew up in Beijing. She's, from a wealthy family. She's from a poor family. She went to a top school. Like they don't know how to anchor that in the story. But suddenly you start telling details. She grew up in China in this rural village. She was the only one in the village to go to college. When she left for the United States, all of her cousins and grandparents and aunts and uncles came to the airport because they had never even been to the airport before, because it was such a major thing that, from a small Western Chinese town, that she was going to be going to New York for college. I'm making this up as I go along, but that shows color. Like you see the family at the airport. You're very vested in this person's story. So you want to write with color, not with black and white. Same with like led successful fundraiser for nonprofit. She joined the fundraising team at this nonprofit, and she couldn't understand, what had gone on in the past. The nonprofit seemed to be like largely spinning its wheels and not getting new donors, and the result, their giving was going down. So she she pulled together this huge financial model and looked at who was giving and who wasn't, whatever. That you see the color. Same with creating a marketing campaign at work. This is a line I see in a lot of essays, but it's a lot more interesting where she just joined the company and her supervisor had gotten sick, and in a matter of a week or two, she had to take over. And this was an incredible experience for her to adjust to this new relationship when the manager returned, but having really done incredible work. So we talk a lot about multi-dimensional brainstorming at MBA Mission because we want people to step back and we really tell our clients, write everything down. Do a brainstorming document. If you're one of our clients, we give you a brainstorming document. We also have a brainstorming document right in our complete start to finish MBA admissions guide. So if that's something that is that you own that book or you buy it, it will give you a truncated brainstorming document that you definitely can use. But our attitude is you want to write everything down about your life and career and outside interests, and then you can much more easily see where there are parallels between certain experiences. So keep that in mind. So we have Bob here, who's a project manager, and he's managing 7 consultants at a failing company. So some of, like, just off the top of my head, these are some essay ideas. How did you forge a unified team of 7? Did any team member require special attention? What was your relationship with your client like? How did you motivate demoralized employees? Did you face any ethical issues? How did you manage your project internally? Wow, look at all those great stories that could come from Bob's experience. So here is kind of a very, very small brainstorming document, but you can see some of the best stories that Bob has. So as a project manager, he lobbied the client and created incentive for demoralized employees to complete work. He managed a high performer's ego. He completed key projects ahead of schedule and earned follow-on business as the only PM. And the health committee, he was able to kind of overcome skepticism and develop a fitness program without a budget. He created a wellness retreat. The theater board that he volunteered for was a mess with the board up in arms, and he was able to achieve harmony. He fundraised and led the board to active recovery. He was very hands-on. He led marketing campaigns, and he was also a terrific grandson. Took his grandma to Hungary for a week, and he just did a fundraising effort. So there's a lot of good stories that Bob has, and now we have to kind of think about, well, how can we tie them together? So first you have to think, what does the admissions committee already know? Okay, when they ask you the question, what else would you like us to consider? What else would you like us to know as we consider your candidacy? Sorry about that. So think about, like, what do they already know? So maybe they already know these things. Maybe they know he completed this key project and developed the fitness program and grew ticket sales, ticket holders, and conducted the wellness retreat. What do I want them to know? Well, I want them to really know that I have this great persuasion skills. I'm really compassionate. I'm really committed to improving myself, and I want to take risks. So I want to make sure that the stories I tell reflect these strong traits. So how can you demonstrate these characteristics? Okay, so strong persuasion skills. Convince the demoralized employees to work. Convince the health committee for the need of the fitness program. Compassion. He knew his grandma wanted to see Hungry again. He knew the medical charity was important. Commitment to self. Fitness and healthy eating. He lost 40 pounds in the last year. He wants to help other people. He's working with a few people to help them, coach them through that. Willing to take risks, argued against skeptics, traveled with grandmother. So you can see how you're bringing stories together that help you write compelling essays. Is there an emerging theme? We talked about themes. Okay, the secret of my success has been my ability to understand others' needs and my willingness to fight for them. So now we think, okay, we have all these good examples. We have his work examples. The employees needed motivation and he gave it to them. The health program understood the importance of fitness and how to create a program. Grandma took her on the trip, convinced her to go and travel with him. Okay, understand others' needs and willingness to fight for them. That was a theme that we pulled out of all that other information. Okay, some approaches. One standout experience can work, or many accomplishments coupled under one sincere theme. Okay, so you can have one amazing experience, or you can have lots of experiences built around a single theme. Focus on showing how or why you did what you did, not what. Okay, that's really important. You want to give them the background. This is how I got there. Okay, I didn't just get there, but this is how I made this happen. You know, everything was stacked against the team. Nobody wanted to participate. I managed to pull 3 people on my side, and this is what we did. Tell a story. Use narrative writing. Make it compelling. Make somebody want to keep reading your essay from beginning to end, so they find out. You don't want to give away the story right at the beginning. You want to wait later on so they keep reading and they want to know what happened. You don't also have to sometimes say, like, this is the theme of my story. Sometimes it's just implied. In fact, when I was talking about the Columbia essay, tell me about what would your cluster mates find pleasantly surprising about you? And we had a lot of discussions at MBA Mission. Do you have to ever write in the essay, this is what my cluster mates would find pleasantly surprising about me? And I said, no. If somebody reads the essay and they find it pleasantly surprising, great. That's what we want. Okay. What you do not want to do is tell them, I'm so proud of myself for doing this. Right? You don't want to throw that in. You don't want to be a bragger. You don't want it to come off that I am so great. I think I'm so super duper. Okay. You also don't want to tie it to CBS in a way that, like, had I been in a class, in a marketing operations class, I would have done a much better job at facilitating this launch. No, you weren't in the class, so let's hear what happened in the launch. And do not embellish or lie. This is such a great thing from the former director of admission at HBS. They do billion-dollar deals and all the grown-ups are somewhere else. They don't realize that the goal of this application is really not to make yourself stand out, but simply tell your story. I tell my clients that a lot. Like, don't make it seem like you've done everything and no one else has done a single thing, because that doesn't work at all. Okay, we talked about this, beginning, middle, and end with some reflection. Tell a story, make it compelling. Reflect, sincerity. You want to say, I understand how I got here. I understand what I did wrong. I understand what I needed to learn. The schools are looking for that reflection. If you talk about something that you overcame, you can triumph in the end, but make sure they understand this wasn't easy. This path sucked. It was awful. My boss left. I was on this project. I had no support. This is how I got through. This is what I did. And then when the new boss came in, I was ready to go. And it was incredible that I was able to finish without any support. That's a story that somebody wants to read. In terms of how to write, most of the time we have a first person perspective. You want it to be earnest. You want simple. People say, I'm not a good writer. How can I do this? Well, if you write short sentences that are direct, your writing invariably will be better than if you try to write these long, winding, 3-4 line sentences, which end up being really a winding mess. And show, don't tell. This is probably one of the most important things you'll take away from this session. When you show something, you use that color, right? You're not just saying she's a Chinese citizen, which is tell. You're showing. She grew up in this rural village. She was related to half the town. They all came to her going away party before she went to University of Chicago. That's interesting. That's much better. So here's an example of show versus tell. So this is tell. During my first 3 years at Goldman Sachs, I worked harder than other analysts. I quickly proved my analytical skills and dedication. So I was asked to mentor junior analysts and was then placed on some of the biggest projects in the company's history. I helped close the $500 million purchase of MBA Inc. by Mission Inc. and led 3 analysts on the $600 billion purchase of Manhattan Inc. by GMAT Inc. I found myself gaining the respect and attention of analysts, associates, and even managing directors. Further, I had worked on international deals which carried cachet internally. It was extremely gratifying when my mentor, our managing director, Steve Smith, promoted me to associate 1 year ahead of schedule, validating my tireless efforts and leadership skills. So the problem with this approach is that when you say I worked harder than other analysts, what does that mean? There's no frame of reference. So instead, why doesn't this person present examples of the hard work that she did? Okay, so it's very clear that she worked hard, not probably harder than most everybody else, but she worked hard. Number one, it's just it's not written in a way that you want to keep reading. It's just kind of like, I did this and then 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 I did this, but it doesn't draw you in. And then we have this example, which I think is it's pitched much better, which is on my first day at Goldman Sachs, my managing director, Steve Smith, informed me I don't have an open door policy, I have a no door policy. So I would frequently walk into his office, often at 3 or 4 a.m. with a question, only to be encouraged to ask even more. After 6 months, I barely visited Steve, but soon found junior analysts at my door telling me, Steve said that you were the right person to ask. Then Steve personally requested that I join the deal team on a $500 billion purchase of MBA Inc. by Mission Inc. and asked that I lead a team of 3 analysts on the $600 billion purchase of Manhattan Inc. by GMAT Inc. At the end of a grueling 6 months of meetings with GMAT's CFO in Argentina and Mission's CFO in Mexico, both deals closed on the same day, and Steve and I personally championed my early promotion to associate. So you just see that, like, I love the line in here, but the junior analysts were knocking at her door, you know, that Steve put her on this deal team, that she led a team. So there's a lot more show than tell here. Just keep that in mind. And this example, I believe, is in our start to finish guide. Possible pitfalls. We always want to know what the pitfalls are. Don't start identifying several accomplishments and then forcing a theme around it. If you're trying to say, I'm really good at this, I did this and this, but there's no theme to those, it doesn't work. So don't try and do it. Do not recycle an essay from another school. Don't try to fit something in because it rarely works. Don't repeat information that's available elsewhere. Like, you want to, if you're writing your essays, especially now for Columbia 1 and 2, you don't want to say, I want to take launching new ventures in essay 1, and then in essay 2 say, I want to take launching new ventures. They're already going to know that you want to take launching new ventures. So just keep that in mind. You want to be able to use the space you have as best as you can. We write here scarce real estate. You don't have to tell all. They don't need every last detail. You want to be able to include what you need and accept that there's going to be a lot on the cutting room floor. And also, don't write more than you need to write. If I usually say to my Columbia clients that the school lets you go up about 5% above the stated word count, so it doesn't have to be you're cut off at 500 words or 250 words. You can go to 525 and let's say between 262 and 265. But you don't want to submit something that's 350 words for the short answers, because then that's just showing the admissions committee you're not really paying attention, right? You want to in some ways show them that you understand what your where your boundaries are. Okay, so in terms of application strategy, here's some just unusual aspects to Columbia's application process. Number 1, Columbia offers an early decision round. This is a huge advantage for people who are ready to apply and believe Columbia is their first choice. So please keep that in mind. The rolling decision deadline is October 4th, but because it's rolling admissions, which we're going to talk is the second bullet here we'll talk about now, that means they're reviewing applications as they come in. So if you submit an application now, your application could be read, and by Labor Day weekend, you could be in there for an interview, and by September 10th, you might know if you've been accepted or not. So there's a very, very big advantage to applying early decision and applying early in the process. It's still considered early in my book. I say every day you apply early before the actual deadline, you're giving yourself a competitive advantage. You need to understand that Columbia at times will call applicants and say, you know, we have your application, but we think you might be a better fit for our executive MBA program or our January term. And you have to take those suggestions seriously, because they're basically saying, we don't think you fit into the program that you are applying to. We think you fit better into this other program. And so please note that. The EMBA usually happens, those kind of calls happen if you're on the older side of the applicant pool for the full-time program, because they're trying to place you. They just don't think you're the right fit for the program, the full-time program. In terms of resume, do not overstuff your resume. I tell my clients, I don't want the font smaller than 10 point. I want a very traditional font being used. I want you to go through every single bullet point and think, what is the, is this an accomplishment? Can I quantify the accomplishment? can I really show impact from what I have here? If you have entrepreneurial experience or like really significant volunteer experience, you could break those out in sections for sure. You want to show them what personal interests you have and the community work that you do. Don't joke about this. Make it catchy. That last line of resumes I have my clients write as interests. And I like that a lot because it lets me see things about them that I might not know. And the short answer questions within the application, spend time doing those. It's not just a copy and paste job from your resume. You really want to make sure you're answering those questions well. In terms of recommendations, this is going to sound crazy if you haven't done the math, but the recommendations that Columbia has can be up to 1,000 words per person, and that's as much as your application to Columbia with your essays, with your essays, because you have 2 essays for 250 and 1 for 500. So you want to do anything you can to prepare your recommenders for writing these responses. You want them to bring in strong details. You don't want to have niceties in there like, Steve is awesome, accept him. That's not what we want to see. We want to see like deep, strong skills. Interviews. Make sure that you're really prepared. Read over that brainstorming document you put together. Download our free insider interview guide, which will go over questions that we offer. Really think, what are my strongest stories and how can I attack questions with that bench of stories? Really, really keep that in mind. If you have news stories, use those too. We're almost at the end, which is good. I thought it would take a little less than an hour. So a little bit about mbaMission. We're the only admissions consulting firm with a full staff of full-time consultants. So that's something really notable to us. We are doing this 365 days a year. This is our job. So keep that in mind. Keep that up. We're already working for you with these events and guides, etc. We're the highest rated firm on GMAT Club. Yay! So we're very happy about that. We're the only admissions consulting firm recommended by Manhattan GMAT. You can try us with the complete start to finish admissions guide, which I've mentioned before, our insider guides, which are free for download on our website. We have lots of events like today. We also have free career primers right on our website, and a free student loan guide as well. We also offer 30-minute free phone consultations, which are great. I do a lot of them. So in terms of our service, we have the start to finish package, which is our comprehensive package. We have our hourly services. We also have mock interview sessions, and we do have some specialized ones for our schools that do team-based interviews. So you can just quickly look down this list and see we have a very, very diverse staff, but everybody has extensive writing and editing background. Everybody went to a top school. We're an interesting bunch. We utilize each other a lot because we don't necessarily work as a team, but work one-on-one with our clients. We still want to make sure that we are connecting with our consulting team if we are struggling with a client's essays or we want a fresh set of eyes. Here again is free download stuff at Career Coaches and M7 Financial and mbaMission, which is our law school admissions consulting. So now I made it to the end. Here we go. So you can go right on our website. You can find our blog there, our guides there, our free consultation sign up. We have some upcoming events, writing Standout application for HBS, which is online on August 9th and August 22nd, the last minute MBA application, which is a great thing to kind of give you an assessment of like where you are in the process. So I'm going to take myself off this sharing and I can take questions if anybody has any. How particular CBS is about undergrad GPA and GMAT scores. Do they place more importance on academics compared to, oh, I think I lost the question, other schools, I think it was. Columbia cares a lot, all of the top schools care a lot about the GMAT score because that's what they use to, compare you to other students and their school to other schools. So yes, it's a big deal. You can undo a weak undergrad GPA by getting a really good GMAT score, but you can't use a strong undergrad GPA to undo a weak GMAT score. Okay, so a strong GMAT score and a low undergrad GPA, you can still get in. If you have a low GMAT score and a high undergrad GPA, it doesn't work in your favor. But they do put a lot of focus on that because they care about who's in the classroom and they care about their ranking versus other schools. I'm looking for the questions. I'm not sure. I don't see it now. Oh, here we go. What are your thoughts on ED and scholarships? Are ED students at a disadvantage for scholarships? You know, I've had ED students who have gotten scholarships. I think it's a little bit harder because they have you, right? Because you've applied early, so they don't have to be as generous, and they don't have to woo you. So you have to know that, you just have to know that it might be a more difficult, but it also is a little less competitive. So you would be into a top school versus trying to get in with regular admissions, which kind of brings me to another question that somebody asked, like, what's the right time to apply for regular admission? So basically, Columbia is going to read all their applications for early decision and then start reading their regular decision, but you want to get your place in line. So I usually tell my clients who are applying regular decision to try and get their application in anywhere from third week in September into mid-October, because you just want to be in that first batch. If you wait too long to apply to Columbia, you really are at a disadvantage because they've already accepted 60 to 70% of your class if you're waiting until kind of this artificial deadline after New Year's. I'm looking for the question, sorry. Oop. Can I get some of those questions back? Oh, okay. I've been told that Columbia is only concerns we as I don't understand that question, so someone needs to do that again. A work experience. Okay, can you bring the question back though, please? I've been told that CBS only considers work experience as something after undergrad. What if an applicant was working full-time and studying part-time? I think there's exceptions to the rule. Like, I've had some clients who have gone to Drexel and Northeastern, and those are co-op programs. So they have extensive experience during college, which led right into their career. So I typically will count that if they had like 2 internships that were 6 months each. It's not like something they did in June and July of their junior year. So I do bring that in. It also could be part of your story that you worked full time during college to put yourself through, and that could be notable to the admissions committee. Oh, maybe this is the questions here. Oh, here. I think this is easier for me. Okay. Wait, I'm going down. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow. How particular CBS is about undergrad GPA and GMAT score? Do they place more importance on academics compared to a solid work experience? I mean, I think it's kind of a balance. They care a lot about the academics because they want to make sure you can handle the work, but they also care a lot about your work experience. So they're looking for the right applicants who bring both those. What would be your thoughts on Indian applicants? I think that Indian applicants are held to a lot of the same standards as everybody else. They need to show good leadership potential. They need to have good career flow. They need to have solid outside activities. They also have to score very well on the standardized tests, because there's such a huge pool of Indian applicants applying to schools like Columbia that a weak score basically boxes you out of getting in there, because they can accept somebody else who has a much higher score who might seem pretty similar to you. So what's your differentiation? Think of that. Okay. First story, how much back in time can one go? Also, how old experience, where can you talk about? I think that you can go back pretty far in time. You don't want your whole application to be like 10 years out, 20 years out. But if there was like a pivotal moment in your life in high school, in college, growing up, that's fair game. You can write about that. But you don't want to write about something like my biggest thing I ever overcame was in high school. Like that seems pretty weak. So it's based on the stories you have. That's how far back you can go. Candidly, what would you recommend a sweet spot for GMAT score for Indians? For Columbia, 740, 750, 760, at least. Remember how the game is played. And that's probably something that's pretty hard for most applicants to really accept, especially if their score is low. These schools care a lot about their GMAT scores because it's used very heavily in their rankings. And if they're going to accept, if let's say they have, I'm just making these numbers up, but let's say they have like 10 Indian applicants, which they definitely have like many, many multiples of 10. But if they have 10 Indian applicants, why would they take the guy with the 680 versus the guy with the 760? If basically all else is equal, they're always going to take the guy with the 760. Because he offers them a higher score and his work experience and outside activities are comparable to the person with the lower score. So it's a lot of give and take. Like if they're going to take you with the 680, then they need to take a few other people with a 760 to make up for it. So I think scoring high is really important for an Indian applicant. From your experience in choosing recommendations, would you recommend choosing someone with an elite MBA if he or she is not your direct supervisor? I know what schools say, but I have a feeling that might be a bit more subjective. My personal opinion, based on years of experience, is pick the person who actually can write about you, who really knows you. A lot of the schools ask a question, tell me a piece of constructive feedback that you've given the applicant and how has the applicant responded. Okay, and the person who's 6 levels up from you who has the Columbia MBA can't answer that question. So they end up writing some answer that's pretty flat and boring and not compelling at all. But your direct manager has a great piece of feedback that she gave you when you first started out, and you've really, really grown thanks to that feedback. So my point is you don't want to reach high and then not have somebody really writing something strong about you. I truly believe it doesn't matter. How would you rate Columbia compared to peer schools? Why? Okay, how would you rate Columbia compared to peer schools and why? I mean, I think Columbia has a lot of advantages that other schools do not have. First, it's in New York City. So there's just this world of opportunity to get out there and meet people and build connections. It's your lab. There's I mean, the NYU also has that, but I think Columbia is a more prestigious MBA program than NYU at this stage, even though I have had terrific clients go to NYU and have found great success, also utilizing the New York advantage. It's an advantage. I think that Columbia is an interesting school because it gets people who are applying to Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. It gets people who are applying to Booth, Tuck, and Darden. It's kind of like in this interesting middle of the top schools. So it's getting a lot of applicants from who are interested in different programs, and they're also interested in Columbia. And I also think what's great about Columbia is that it has this early decision component. So there's a whole group of the class who really wants to be there. And I really like that about it. Like, this was their first choice. That's why they came. So I like that. All right, I think we're finished for today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we look forward to having you at our next session. Thanks so much.